Gather around, freaks. It's Thursday night, and every single human being on Earth is gathered around the Twitchotron 5000 to ask the same question they ask each and every week. And that question is, hey, did you see this one? I've been abducted by aliens. I'm in space. I'm on a spaceship with my two pals. We're here.
We're naked in these tubes.
We're naked in these tubes. It's definitely not.
I think there's someone else in my tube.
I think I went headfirst through somebody else's tube, and now they're dead, and I'm probably gonna die. It's the weekly movie review / reaction podcast. I've changed it to review / reaction because it's not just a review; it's also a reaction. A podcast about called "Hey, did you see this one?" It is Close Encounters month. This week we are talking about Fire in the Sky, and we have a guest this week. We have a guest who came on previously. We have a guest who is the star of the hit television channel Hollywood Suite. We have Cam Maitland is back, ladies and beans and gentlemen and fiends.
I mean, I always forget about the drops. Isn't a review a reaction? I don't understand.
I'm trying to...
Also, this is more of a discussion than a review.
Welcome back to the only review / reaction / discussion podcast on
I feel like
internet.
There's not a single other one.
Also requires going,
oh, on the thumbnail.
I'll have to put us in the thumbnail doing that from going forward.
Yeah. We'll get a screen cap of all of us doing that at the end.
Like, unironically, I had a friend of mine, Jeff, who does our graphics. He said you have to do that to get anywhere in this business, kid.
It literally is like statistically proven that you get more clicks with that. That's why they overdid it.
Yeah. So
weird.
It is,
people are weird.
It is a weird thing, but we are talking about the movie Fire in the Sky, the film.
The movie Fire in the Sky, directed by Robert Lieberman, written by Tracy Torme and Travis Walton. Based on the book written by Travis Walton, which was, I think, called The Travis Walton Experience, which was later...
just The Walton Experience.
Okay, The Walton
That's
Experience.
That's what my background is the cover of the book.
Yeah, and I got the movie.
And
together we have both.
A poster, and I got our faces. I have introduced, before we get into the body of the episode, and even before we get into our history with the episode, we have two new segments we've been doing. The first is pretty easy. I ask a question on Monday and Tuesday. I put up a little picture of the poster or whatever to try to get people to sort of guess. It's my way of doing fan interaction. It's people fall for it. It's great. So I have a
maybe don't say they're falling for it.
I mean,
people love it.
People love it.
They totally fall for it.
Congratulations! You have successfully guessed the correct answer, which is the answer you provided. Congratulations!
So this one's a hefty one. Lots of people got it, and I've made it so they can totally plug something and send a message to the world. So I'll try to get through this as quickly as possible because it's a lot. Aaron Hurdle got it again because he's a super genius when it comes to film posters, I suppose. He says, "I've never listened to anyone who criticized my taste in space travel, sideshows, or gorillas. When this occurs, I pack up my dinosaurs and leave the room." Gene Roddenberry.
Old
pretty good.
Gene Rottenbody.
Old Genie Rottenbod. The Off Topic podcast, starring Doug and Kadeem, got it again. They just wanted us to shout out their podcast. I believe it's a conspiracy podcast, so it fits perfectly with this week's episode. Stu Hayward.
I mean, you have a conspiracy theory every week, so it kind of fits with the theme of this podcast as well, right?
I guess so. Those are more just, I think you need 3 people for it to be a conspiracy. So those are just harebrained opinion theories.
Right. Okay. Tinfoil hat theories.
Yeah. Stu Hayward wants to plug his new comedy show that he's doing in Dartmouth, Nova Scotia. It's every Tuesday night at 8 p.m. at the Celtic Corner. He's also, it's called Show Up and Go Up, stand-up comedy. He also wanted to let us know that he wants to come on the show and do Terminator 2. So we can we can discuss that.
Yeah, a movie that's definitely under discussed.
Yeah, a movie that nobody's ever talked about before, analyzed. We have the user David and Karen Andrade Nightingale from Instagram. Just want to wish my beautiful wife a happy 2-month wedding anniversary. We are separated by the Pacific Ocean right now, and you can look up Miss Nightange on TikTok. Noel Kotef, who's been on the show, they want to say champagne to all my real friends and real pain to all my sham friends. Also listen to the Stick Taps and Stitches hockey podcast that they co-host. Moving forward, Ashley Poo X wants to say, what are you having for dinner? Additionally, Lauren Caborn, an old manager of mine, wants to plug the podcast Mike and Kristen podcast, mikeandkristen.podbean.com. He wants to know, what's your recipe? So let us know in the comments, the chat, or wherever you're watching this.
What's your recipe?
What's your recipe? Tim Covey, he just wants his name said, and go watch his episodes of the show and watch this show. He wants everybody
he's
to
a good
know
guest.
He's a great guest.
Castaway. Good episode.
Yes. A pal of mine, John Nolet, guessed it wrong, but I thought the guess that he had was funny. He said something about water in the ground, if my memory serves me correctly. I think he was making a little joke there. And finally, a pal of mine, Tom Doherty, got it, and he wanted to promote his new LP for the band War Crusher, Armistice, from Desolate Records, and keep watching the skis. Thanks. This segment means a lot to me because it shows that people are engaging with the show. So thank you for bearing with us here. And that's that.
We did it. Congratulations.
That guy. I don't know if that guy's marriage is gonna last if he's making her listen to this, though. You gotta stop that.
That's a good point. So I did a really good job of getting everything set up this week. We do have another new segment that's basically just, I want to talk about the director a little bit. Did you guys look into it at all?
Sure.
A little bit, yeah.
Okay.
All right. Quiet on set. Are we rolling? Okay, let's shoot this piece of shit. Sound. Speed. Action!
So basically, Steve made that sting, and we have to play it every time because it's...
Well, that's our director voice, so...
Yeah, do you make the segments first or the stings first?
I have a whole barn full of stings, so I'm just trying to come up with segments for them. What was our next segment going to be called? Bong Thoughts for My Dream Journal or whatever?
Yeah, Bong Thoughts for My Dream Journal, which is like, hey man, I'm going to listen to my Bong Thoughts.
Yeah, Bongcast. Anyway, so the director, Robert Lieberman, he's directed over 2,000 commercials.
Mm-hmm.
That's something. But he's made a couple of movies that I've seen, a bunch of TV shows he's done episodes for. But the two that I'm most familiar with, I guess, would be The Expanse and X-Files, which I guess slots right into this theme this week.
Even kind of looks like an episode of The X-Files, which is he did episodes.
One of the better ones, I'd say.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, he's been working forever, but there's a lot of anecdotal stuff about him in this movie specifically. He's one of the people that 100% did not believe that this was real. It's like, this is a hoax.
Yeah.
This is a horrible hoax. And part of me is like, I wonder if he would have made a better movie if he believed in it, or he at least wanted to believe. But I think that Tracy Torme is probably a little bit more noteworthy, right? She was a writer on SNL, who I think created.
I think
Slider.
it's a man, Tracy, isn't it? Yeah.
I thought it was a lady.
I thought it was a fella.
Oh my God!
So
my whole
Lieberman
perspective.
Directed D3, The Mighty Ducks, so
Yes.
you can't just gloss over that.
I've never seen it, so I can.
I mean, neither have I.
Also confirmed, Tracy Torme very much a fellow.
A man. Okay.
Yeah.
I think I looked up a picture, but it was like a picture of him with a woman, and I just thought the woman was Tracy.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. That's my bad.
What an
I do think his spouse Robin Torme maybe writes as well.
Okay, but he was also the creator of Sliders, which is cool.
Yeah.
I like Sliders when I was a kid.
And I do think that there's weirdly some fire in the sky-ish Sliders, you know?
Yeah, the whole thing is a fire in the sky.
Big fire in the sky.
Yeah, a hole in the sky. I don't know. Has he done anything other than write? I don't think so, right? I guess he's done some producing and stuff, but yeah, a lot of science fiction. So I think there's a lot of problems with this movie, but I don't think the screenplay was one of them. I would say even the editing and the screenplay are probably two of the strengths of this movie. But
like
I don't know.
literally
We'll get
good
into
on
that when we
paper.
talk about the body of the episode. Yeah, it is literally good on paper. I don't know, Cam, do you have anything to add about Robert Lieberman?
Robert Lieberman. I mean, the cool thing that'll come up in an I don't know that it's cool, but that will come up in an anecdote later is he was, of course, married to Taxi's Mary Lou Henner, the lady who has a perfect memory, which he has a funny anecdote about in regards to Fire in the Sky. They are since not married anymore, but I believe it might be his son that directed the recent film Theater Camp. At least it's Mary Lou Henner's kid, and I think it's probably her kid with him.
I have not seen that either, but I'm aware of its existence.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, can I just interject for 1 second here?
Yeah.
I have a situation where my sound is a little bit low, so I just want to do a little testy here.
You sound fine.
I'm just listening to it on the old the old whatever shit.
Which Twitch?
Yeah. Why is that happening now? That's strange. Oh, I see. I'll just turn up my own volume.
Yeah, I was literally going to ask that.
Hello, and this is the sound of my voice.
Guys, if you're watching, don't worry. Jason is not an IT professional.
No, I'm definitely not an IT professional. I definitely
It's not his job.
didn't need to test this before we actually went online. Anyway,
You sound fine on Twitch now, yeah.
cool. Sorry about that.
No problem.
Sound is making me twitch.
Heyo.
What were we talking about? The director. Did you have anything else you wanted to add about the director?
About Robert Lieberman? No, he seems all right. R.I.P.
Yeah. Oh, he died. It didn't. Oh, he died this year.
Mm-hmm. A recent loss.
Recent loss. Yeah, I mean, he was working pretty much forever too. I think his last thing was 2011.
Yeah.
2017. He was working.
Oh
on stuff.
wow.
No,
Yeah.
Lieberman, 2021, baby.
2021. My God.
Yeah.
All right, shall we go into the body of the episode?
Well,
Or
no,
sorry, we got to do that brief history.
We talked
right?
about our brief history of the show, so every week we like to talk about our brief history of the movie.
A brief history.
Cam, you love it. You love that we have stings. You love that we stop the show to listen to Steve say a funny thing.
Cool.
If you aren't familiar, we just sort of run down our history with the film. Sometimes it's as simple as I watched this movie yesterday. Sometimes, like this week, there's a little bit more to it. And I've made it a tradition to let the guest go first around these parts. So, Cam, why don't you give us a brief history?
Well, I mean, you guys are around the same age as me, so you probably have somewhat similar. Like I was obviously a child when this came out, so I wouldn't have gone to it in theaters. But it was one that, like, the bad kids, the latchkey kids, maybe got on VHS and had seen and were like, you won't even believe this movie. And so, yeah, I think I probably saw it first on cable in some sort of edited version. It came out, well, we'll get into it probably frequently, but it came out the same year as the X-Files. And that was just a time that will also sound like old men talking about, but like there was a minute where aliens were huge and all kids cared about was aliens and Area 51 and all that. So it definitely was one that you were like curious about because it's like based on a true story, blah. And it suited all the like. It's hard to explain, but there was just like constant specials on TV. Alien Autopsy, all those things. So
Yeah, they
this
did
one always seemed like the fucked up one.
they did an Alien Autopsy on Fox in like 1994 or 95, and it's like
95, I think. Yeah.
it's like
Yeah.
what, like who believed that shit? I guess the same people that believe now that aliens are here and have been the whole time.
And they had a whole TV show called In Search of Sasquatch. People are dumb.
Yeah.
And we all also remember Hillary Clinton's adopted baby Palad from Alien Outer Space from the Weekly World News. You know, like it was just everywhere.
Yeah. Bat
and
Boy
again-
and Aliens.
Yeah, exactly.
Fantastic.
How about you guys?
How about you, Steve? Sorry, I never know. I need to give the guest the safe word because I never know when.
I think it was pretty clear he was done.
That's true. There was a silence.
Transmission complete.
Yeah.
All right, Steve, what's your brief history?
Incoming transmission. Incoming transmission. You know that guy that does that where he's getting signals from space? This whole movie kind of made me think of that while I was watching it, but also thinking about this madman who wrote the book. But my brief history, I didn't actually see this until quite a bit later in life, mostly because of the hype around it and the kids saying how scary it was. So I think I was probably in my 20s when I saw this for the first time, but I was still very much affected by that one scene that we all know and fear. Watching it this time, I was giggling a little bit during that sequence, and I think it's because I was watching it with a goofball, and I kept being like, they kind of look like little old ladies, and we were just doing old lady voices the whole time. But still pretty potent. It was quite intense. But yeah, my first time watching it, I remember very little of the rest of the movie, so it was almost like watching it for the first time. I can just only remember that the two very clear moments are when he first is dumped down and they find him at the gas station, and the abduction sequence. And I kind of forgot about it for a little while, unless it's brought up, off the cuff during conversation where, you're specifically talking about alien abduction movies. You'll probably stumble across this one during conversation. But yeah, that's my brief history. Nice.
Yeah, that's pretty much a sentiment, I think, for all my friends that remembered it when I was like mentioning this to people this week. Everybody talks about the abduction scene, basically all the parts on the ship. I think I may have watched this movie in its entirety at age 8 or 9 and forgot about it, but I was deathly afraid of two things when I was a kid: being abducted by aliens and things going into my eyes. And I think it unlocked a latent memory, because as I was watching this, I was realizing that the timeline lines up. We had this channel, this Edmonton affiliate called ITV in Nova Scotia growing up, and they
interesting.
used to show this movie on it, either trailers for it or they showed the full movie on it. I can't remember. This was 30 years ago, literally. And I very much sort of realized through watching it yesterday that I may have kind of scrambled my brains watching it and then pushed down the memories, and then
much like Travis Walton.
Yeah,
you're blocking out the traumatic experience.
I was gonna say, did you get abducted by this movie?
I think I Travis Walton to myself with this movie. My parents found me huddled and nude,
naked in the shower.
Yeah, my eyes were all blackened and I had crusty blood around my nose. I was feral for a couple days. No, I think I very much did, because it was such a part of my childhood. I can really vividly remember, through the eyes of a child, the latex pulled over his face when the latex shrinks on his body. And I honestly think that I did see this movie and pushed it down, because something very similar happened. I've talked about this on the show many times, but I saw RoboCop around this time as well. And that made it so I couldn't watch any horror movies. And then shortly after that, I watched Problem Child 2. And also,
I don't want to have children.
Yeah.
No, I think Problem Child 2 and The Sandlot in the same summer, and I couldn't handle throwing up in movies until I was
Oh, right.
in
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
That's why I
20s.
still don't like those movies. I'm like, ugh, barf. I don't
Yeah.
like barf.
RoboCop's why you always wear that bulletproof underwear too, right?
Yeah.
So you can't shoot your dick off.
So they can't show my dick shot up
Yeah.
100 times.
I have the same sort of story when I saw The Evil Dead when I was 4 years old, when I really shouldn't have seen that. And then years later, when I finally watched it, I was like, I thought I dreamt this horrifying imagery. And it's like, this isn't a real thing. I thought it was just a nightmare that I had. Well, I guess that brings our brief history to a conclusion. I was going to ask Jason, does Madison ever find you huddled underneath your kitchen table?
Yeah, constantly.
Always.
All the time. Yeah.
But it's
Except
not-
his nose is encrusted with blood for other reasons.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. It's not because I was abducted by aliens. It's because I took too many. And with that, we can move along to the body of the episode.
Ho, 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 ho! Everybody back up, because here comes the body of the episode.
That's
the body
great.
of the episode is the one part you don't need a drop for.
Yeah.
But it's the best drop. It's a sexy lady coming in.
Okay, well then you gotta make a. Well, it looks like we're about halfway through the body of the episode.
We do.
And a closing, like, well, that's the end of the body.
Oh, God, now that's what I call the middle of the episode.
Yeah, you guys should, if your Twitch streamers gift you $100, should do an "Oops, all drops" episode where it's just an hour of one drop after
Hey,
another.
if you're in there's 7 people watching right now. If you drop a sub, we'll consider making you a drop.
That's a lot of work for me. I'm gonna have to come up with a bunch of new stings.
No, I can.
What
I
else?
can help.
What else are you doing?
That's true. Nothing.
Nothing. With that, the body of the episode is of course the segment of the show where we just talk about the movie at will at freedom. Usually there's 2 ways to go about it. Usually we just talk. Sometimes we go beat by beat. What I like to say is that let's just talk about the movie, and if we get stuck, I've basically got the movie written out. So
Wow.
yeah, we can
Nice.
move it along that way. So, how did everybody feel about the 1993 classic?
I think as much as it is like uneven. There's like no question about that. But I do feel like it was better than I expected. Like, I think it's a movie that famously a lot of people are like, well, it sucks except for the abduction.
Yeah.
But like, it's just that it's like 2 completely different movies. That there's like a fucking Tool video of an abduction sequence 3.5 quarters through the movie that is very memorable. But I do think that the other part of the movie where they're like not admitting whether or not it's real, and it's kind of the classic Clint Eastwood bunch of guys get railroaded by the mob,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It kind of had.
I mean, it works well as like because I mean, we've all seen the movie before, so we knew what was coming. But if you're going in and you don't know what's gonna happen, it works well as a little murder mystery. I can't imagine it being like you said, it's uneven, and the tone of the two things are so completely different from one another. From like the beginning of the movie to when he returns, they do feel like 2 completely different movies. Even like tonally in terms of the music and stuff, there's sort of like those like John Williams-y hook stings of like that sort of like lighthearted music playing when they're traveling through the town and stuff.
Touch on. I also found that it was like 3 very distinct acts. There's like the whole first part, which is like a circle of them experiencing it, and the second act is just this whole story about the fucking lie detector.
Yeah.
Which is weird because at the time I feel like lie detectors were still in that realm of, hey, if you go into a lie detector and you can be proven telling the truth or lying, and that's the science. But now we know that it's based off of your heart rhythm. Right?
Like, I think you're totally right that's what kills the movie. Like, it's a hard movie to like. I would never recommend this to like a young person because it's so deeply relies on you believing that, like, this one doesn't have hypnosis in it, right? I watched a few of these movies. So like, but all these movies rely on you either believing like in the memory hypnosis or that lie detectors are real.
It's a well done time piece movie too, so it feels it feels like you're watching a 70s or an 80s movie, but it's from 1993 also, so it's like double backwards dated, so it's got that whole
it's got the fingerprints of a 90s movie. It's got the DNA. It has all the tropey stuff that we like from the 90s. I hope. I mean, I have that sort of like pure nostalgia for just the vibe of a 90s movie that I miss so much, that seems to not be able to be replicated anymore. They can't do it anymore.
Yeah. I mean, one crazy thing with this movie too is it's like, and I think it's weird because it's all people who are kind of they have not necessarily actors who will settle into being character actors, but it's like there's not really a star in this movie because D.B. Sweeney and Robert Patrick kind of settled into becoming character actors,
right?
So it's a weird movie where you're like, it's all like, hey, that guy, like James Garner is kind of the biggest like, oh yeah, which is
but everybody recognizable. It's a lot. It's like a whole car full of that guy kind of thing. Like, oh, it's the kid from ET. Oh, it's the guy from Battleship, the movie.
I was gonna mention
it's Nightbreed himself. He's here. But this time he's the monster.
I was going to mention, Cam, you were on for the Black Phone, and we talked about this movie, and you had kind of thought that I think you in your head like Ethan Hawke or somebody was in this movie. He's not, but I see why, because
I said this.
You said this. Yeah. Everybody in this movie looks like young Ethan Hawke.
I think I made that point on Black Phone. I was like, actually, I think everybody in the car kind of looks like Ethan Hawke a little bit.
It's weird because it's like actually a weird era for Henry Thomas, because he kind of disappeared for a while after this and then came back, and now he's like, of course he'd be in this movie. But it's funny because I was like, oh, I wonder what he looks like at this age, and then you saw one guy and you're like, oh, Henry. Oh no, wait, that's not Henry Thomas. They all just look kind of exactly the same. And then the other weird thing that I found out just researching this is the guys, I guess I don't know what their ages are because these are all kind of old man actors in my mind, but like the real people were like 20 to 28 years old, which does not seem like what's going on in this movie.
Yeah, I thought it was meant to be sort of a grab bag of people who just want to make a quick buck by cutting trees down, so you get that age range of 17 to 45 or whatever.
And I feel like that all of the characters had very distinct personas, but they didn't dive into that because the acting was a little bit off kilter. Like you had Robert Patrick, who is like great, right? And D.B. Sweeney or Sweetie, the Travis,
Sweeney,
he's pretty good. But then the rest of them are just kind of like soap opera actors. Is the guy who played Dallas anybody?
Nightbreed.
That's Nightbreed? Okay.
Yeah, he's like more of an 80s guy. This is kind of like right before he drops off. But A River Runs Through It, actually a lot of them are in, which is kind of weird because Henry Thomas is also in that. But he was Some Kind of Wonderful. Remember that movie? I don't know, lots of 80s. Craig Sheffer. But yeah, you've definitely seen him in stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because he had a look, I really liked Dallas's character.
I hated his character so much.
I mean,
I had like a whole page of notes being like, "This guy sucks."
But
yeah. I was gonna say that the weird thing that I think you wanted, Jason, and I was kind of expecting too, is they never really try to like, and I guess it's true to the real story that these guys never turned on each other.
Yeah,
like this is not. They collaborated each other's stories, and like the best you get is that Dallas rightfully is like, I'm not doing this. They're just going to say I murdered this guy.
Well, before it's sort of soft. You look at the history of this story, and it's sort of soft revealed that it's a hoax. They were reading tabloids. They were poor. They wanted to probably come up with something that would give them a bit of fame, a little notoriety. I was thinking that like the reality was that maybe Dallas and him got into it. Dallas like beat him almost to death. They had to leave because it was the 70s. They just left him for dead. They introduced the Indian Reserve for like a second. I thought they were going to do more with that, and I don't. It's not a full like.
I totally forgot about that.
It was 1 second.
Weird. It does seem like you're gonna be like, oh, is there gonna be weird racist stuff, or like, is that where he is, or we're gonna like hear, because weirdly, like. The concept of fire in the sky is like an indigenous thing, but they never really touch on that, which is like, what?
And I don't want to get into a full like theory corner about it because it's pretty obvious that like they just liked like tabloid stories, and they were in a hick town, and they needed some money. You know.
Well, also, yeah. I mean, the prevailing theory by most investigators is they did it to get out of their logging contract because they were fucking up and not going to finish their logging contract, and this was like an act of God.
We got abducted by aliens.
I swear to God, we can't finish the contract.
And there is actually a pretty, because I'm like, okay, but then there's a pretty damning, like him speaking to the press being like, and all I want to do is finish this logging contract, but oh, I hope this doesn't ruin our logging contract. And I'm like, all right, buddy. And then meanwhile in this movie, they're like, it's like a tragedy that they lose the logging contract.
Eon 27.
Smash cut to the native reserve where Travis is just sitting around,
just hanging out.
Yeah.
Elion in the chat asks, "Is this the way I can get out of work?" So
yeah, I mean, you can try.
You can try, and I do think the funny thing, like, we'll probably get into it because, like, it's interesting that there was this boom in the 90s that all kind of came from, like, Bob Lazar, who did, like, the Area 51 stuff. But it's happening again, partially, I think, that we talked about. All these freaking guys are going up Joe Rogan. And, like, you've got, like, some so-so Senate hearings, plus all of these guys returning, being like, hi, what's up?
Remember me from the 90s?
Yeah.
I watched Travis. I was talking to you guys about this on the little pre-show before. And I was watching. So Joe Rogan's whole shtick is he asks questions to these nutcases to get more information. He's just asking questions, right?
He's just asking questions.
And he's doing his shtick to Travis Walton, and he keeps making Travis Walton stare off into the distance and clearly lie, or say, you know, that was a really hard night for me. I don't really want to bring up these feelings. And then he goes on a clearly rehearsed tirade about specific things he saw, and he'd be like, oh yeah, I pushed one of the aliens off me, and I reached for something and hit him with it. And Joe's like, what did that look like? And he was like, oh, it looked like, and he looks around down at the glass table, and he's like, it was like glass.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
And there was a light shining on me as I was on the operating table.
What color was the light? Oh, it was Joe's wearing a gold shirt. Golden light.
Yeah. Enema Bag Jones. Yeah.
That's the other thing, is that his story has changed multiple times since he first, recited it to the police and wrote the book. And then he's also he's added like even emotional swaps. I think that he initially said, it was terrifying, and then he changed the story to like, I think they were just trying to help me. They hit me with the beam of light. And
I was gonna say the book is like pretty like beatific, and also like it's very worth saying that this movie, almost none of his experience of the abduction is what you see in the movie. Because, yeah, like he said it was the oft overlooked kind of alien, the Nordics, which are just giant white guys with long blonde hair, which nobody wants to put in a movie because it's too stupid, but is a kind of alien people talk about.
That's based off of something, though, right? That's there's people who believe that there's a race of alien who came down and mingled with Cro-Magnon man or something, and that's why you get Aryan people. They're the tall blondes, who are beautiful.
Wow. I mean, there's also people that believe that those aliens still are here, and you'll even see, weird, blurry hotel lobby footage of like two really tall guys wearing matching suits walking, and they're like, "Look, it's them! It's them!"
Beyonce's a reptilian. I've seen these YouTubes. If you guys click on that Joe Rogan, it's all you'll get.
Now my whole YouTube is just Joe Rogan clips, so I took a bullet for this and I didn't even get anything worthwhile out of it. Just an old man with a really bad toupee just lying for 20 minutes straight. I had to stop
watching it because he had a frog in his throat the entire interview, and it's one of the most disgusting things to me. I'm like, just clear your throat, drink some water.
Oh dear.
Please.
But yeah, the interesting thing is I also this got me into other alien abduction movies and stuff, and the one, I guess, so the other crazy thing is like a week before his abduction there was this movie with James Earl Jones called The UFO Incident, which is pretty weird, and it's like them just recalling, but theirs is a little more like anal proby.
Yeah, but, it'd be hilarious if they found like a movie ticket stub, and they're like
no, it was on TV.
Like,
it was on TV, and I believe that they admit that they saw it.
Oh, Jesus.
Like, it's not even.
You know what we should do, fellas?
Well, that's where the whole subplot of them picking up a tabloid and be like, oh, and it says like alien abduction on the front of the tabloid.
Yeah.
That's like where that whole idea, I think, of the filmmakers were like, that seems a little like you guys were just reading a tabloid and are idiots.
Yeah.
Or
It's
hillbillies.
true. There does seem like a bit of a wink. Though I will say the interesting thing is when you go, there's an oral history, but that's behind a paywall, so you can only read about half of it. But it is interesting that a couple of them, I think including Tracy Torme maybe, they're like, I don't know what happened to these guys. Like, I don't think that many of them necessarily believe it was aliens, but they do believe that like something messed up happened. Like, and Robert Patrick feels the same way. That like they do seem legitimately traumatized by something, and also they say that like Tracy is hyper smart for like, because I guess this is like a super rural area. It's also super Mormon, I guess, which is not in the movie. But like they're all like very devoutly Mormon, and they have like 9 kids each. Right. So yeah, they say that it's a very like they're very unusual people, but like it's hard to believe that these guys are just like so dedicated to a lie, you know?
I mean, if that's all you have in life.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, Walton, they paint him like he's like this dreamer, like he wants to create that business, the motorcycle business, and he jumps out of the truck. He jumps out of the
wild dream. Motorcycle.
Well, look, he's climbing on the house. He's crazy.
Yeah,
so romantic. He's gonna give.
I mean, he does decide to run up to that line. That's the other thing. It's like if you're abducted, you deserve a fucking dumbass.
And he does.
We were saying the same thing while watching it. It's like, dude, all of this is coming to you. You're getting what's coming to you.
He does say in that interview from recently on Joe Rogan that like there were a bunch of other reports of lightning and lights at that time in that area.
Yeah, a bunch of other people saw it,
So I wonder, if something, not supernatural, but I wonder if something happened. I really want to know.
There's a note by the director that he said that he in no way believed that this happened. He's like, this is definitely a hoax. But he also said that Walton seemed so much smarter than the rest of these guys involved in this, that he wouldn't put it past him to have set up some sort of lighting system, like laced their after work beer with some acid or something, and then just like put on a show for them. And like, I mean, it seems like a lot for a gag, but I don't know, maybe he was that smart. Who knows?
Yeah,
I also consider the acid.
Yeah, as much as you can go into like how weirdly botched the investigation for him is, but it still seems like they searched enough that, you know, you would have like, it's pretty impressive that he hid for 5 days.
Yeah.
And nobody's ever like showed where he hid.
But they did.
I wonder, like, would they have been allowed to have gone onto the reservation, or is it like protected?
They did that though, because Dallas was hiding on the res.
Oh yeah.
And they go to the res, and that shows clearly that there are places you can go and hide from the police in a rural town.
And when you read the thing too, it's actually they don't show a lot of the faker seeming stuff, because it's like his mother or something was like never worried and kept being like, just call off the search. So
he's just hiding in a tree somewhere.
He's in a weather balloon / the attic.
Yeah. Oh God, Balloon Boy.
Falcon or whatever his name was.
Sure.
Yeah.
Remember when his dad like shit himself on TV? Oh God.
I always talk about their they had a horrible metal band with a song called Pussified.
Oh, that was them too. Man, the internet is wild. Mid 2000s internet is wild.
They're crazy.
It's crazy too how at this time this movie played into people's like mass hysteria about alien abductions. And I think even though I am sure this movie is what caused it for me when I was a little kid, it was everywhere. Like you mentioned, Steve, like In Search Of had alien episodes. I think even like Unsolved Mysteries definitely had an alien episode.
Yeah.
I think even like Rescue 911 had an alien episode.
They were like part of the same universe in a way that I don't. Yeah. But no, for sure. There's like In Search Of was that show. Like there's a bunch of. I mean, what's the like no false? But like that show.
Right.
The one with Riker.
Yeah.
Fact or fiction?
Fact or fiction.
No,
False.
we made it up.
Yeah.
That was on
those
before
all
Mad
Total
TV.
fabrication. Yeah.
Yeah, that was awesome.
And like Inside Edition, all those things had aliens and
Unsolved
like
mysteries. Yeah,
Sally,
like
Jesse, Raphael would have an
It's just-
abductee. Probably Oprah had abductees.
Definitely
on,
Jerry
to be
Springer,
honest.
even though that was 100%
Oh,
fake.
yeah.
The
Jerry
most
Springer would
reliable,
have an
yeah.
alien come out and be like, yeah.
I'm carrying this
Yeah.
alien's baby.
Yes, exactly. But yeah, all these guys definitely. And that's the other thing is like it used to be that you could make money off of it. I mean, it's always like the fact that all these guys have a book is pretty impressive. And that's
It's also-
yeah, I don't know.
I was just gonna
Yeah.
say it's like impossible for people to get away with things like that now because everybody has a phone. So if you know you're in your truck with your buddies and you see a light, you're just gonna film it.
Yeah, that's truly like why people have said that nobody cares anymore. And I guess even stuff like ghosts and things, in spite of all the TV shows, are way down. Like actual people being like, I had an Amityville happen or whatever.
Yeah.
It's way down.
Is there
Crop
even
circles. That
a
was the thing. Remember when
supernatural-
crop circles were like, whoa, another crop circle popped up, and it's just some old man with a board and rope or whatever. Just
Yeah.
flattening some corn in his
Is there
field.
even a post Ghost Hunter era? Is there even a new thing, or Bigfoot was a thing for a
I
second?
think that's still the main one. Is Zach
A new
Baggins or whatever.
a new guy put out a Bigfoot recently. There was just some new Bigfoot footage
Okay.
Oh yeah, the train
couple
where they've
weeks
like
ago.
they're up
Yeah.
on a train and then
And don't forget the weird alien mummy that Mexico had.
That's true.
Right.
See, I think we're in the midst
the
of.
president of Mexico or whatever. It's like aliens are fully real. It's all I believe.
I had some.
Did you guys-
I read that somebody debunked that and said that it was like a
Oh, yeah.
mummified sloth or something. So it isn't.
Sure.
I mean, obviously it's not an alien.
No, I know,
I
but
mean, I saw what looked picture perfect a version of it, but it was actually, and I
Okay.
shit you not, cake. Yeah,
Yeah, I was about to say the same thing.
They staged the press conference, but so perfectly, and then they came in with a knife, and it was cake. So yeah, it's interesting because I think it's a thing. I feel like it might have been the comedian David Mitchell, but it's like aliens and ghosts and stuff are like, you know, are you an atheist or not? And it's like, isn't it just more fun to kind of think that there might be aliens and ghosts?
I've always
I
been.
think everybody's, yeah.
I've always been of the mind. I'm kind of like a Mulder, where I'm like, I want to believe, but I will
Yeah.
debunk it. I've sat in the dark, you know, and I've been like, okay, let's in a weird basement, like I want to see something. I've you know sat out into the stars and watched the sky, you know, and not once have I ever.
My sister got abducted by aliens when I was a child.
I got abducted by aliens as a child, and when they
Every time
flashed
you're in the
me,
bathroom, you chant Bloody Mary.
yeah, when they flashed me, they made it so I'm a true unbeliever. So that's what happened to me.
Whoa. They really got to you, man.
How did he
People are just people are just fascinated by the unknown, and they want to
Yeah.
be scared and spooked by stuff. So there's no harm in it really, unless you're, you know, trying to make a buck.
Unless you're the ancient aliens guy.
taking advantage of people. But yeah, I think at the end of the day, it's like people enjoy good ghost stories and alien abductions, and it's fun to look at the stars and be like, "What's out there? I don't know. Probably aliens, maybe."
Yeah, hopefully
Let's-
not nothing.
Yeah, that's kind of even more scary than there actually being stuff out there.
I think realistically, where everything's so far apart that like, if alien, like I think it's more believable that aliens could have been here or have been nearby, but they're not allowed to interact with us. Kind of like the Prime Directive.
This is quickly turning into a bong thoughts from my dream journal moment.
There you go.
This whole movie is a bong thought.
I really
from
think
some
that the
guy's
stars
dream
are
journal.
really far apart. Yeah, yes.
I mean,
True.
they are.
Yes, they definitely are.
Noel in the chat mentions L. Ron Hubbard. Unless you're the Scientology guy, didn't he
Right.
write about aliens exploding in a volcano and now people use
Yeah.
walnuts to cure illnesses? Seems harmful. That is harmful, and also that is kind
That's
of
exactly
the
what I
theory.
meant by people taking advantage of others by
Yes.
Yeah.
using the
Listen,
ghost stories to make
Just
money for
because
themselves.
it sounds like somebody in the chat is a suppressive person who is controlled by an alien ghost is all I'm going to say. But yeah, I don't know. It's fun. I was gonna say that the one of the other movies I watched, which was actually a lot of fun, is called Communion, and it's by another guy, Whitley Strieber, who says he was abducted by aliens, and his is like the other reason why they don't like the Walton one is because it actually doesn't fit what the kind of
like
common delusion.
Isn't the overarching common delusion from like swamp gas and people hallucinating from?
Yeah, people think it's sleep paralysis
or sleep
and stuff
paralysis.
like that. Yeah. And so that's more like the recovered memory thing, where it's like people are having these weird issues and then they're slowly. But the fun thing about Communion is he sees most of all the different kinds of aliens. They still don't do Bigfoot or the Nordic ones, but he sees the little blue guys. The interesting thing it has in common with this one is that one also seems to imply that the gray alien is like a suit of some sort, because at one point he punches part of its face off and it has like a googly like.
I liked that. I thought that was interesting. I've somehow never seen that in anything else, and it kind of a lot of elements of this movie remind me of the early South Park episodes where the aliens are in the background.
Very, very possible that this movie inspired
like that, like most of like the town folk gathering around in the hospital and rabble really reminded me of like early South Park. And of course, there's an alien in every episode for like 20 seasons or something as well that looks like the big head. What are they called?
Actually,
there's a name.
They're called Greys. They're called the Greys.
No, but there's another name for it.
I don't know.
You're right.
It's the only one I know.
Called the Greys. Grey's Anatomy.
I was going to say I looked into Communion actually after you had mentioned it during the week, Cam, and apparently that movie was they like went crazy for the budget for the aliens because they're like, we don't want it to look like Communion. It looked too crazy.
Yeah, Communion, it kind of works because it's like dreamy, but it is it's a little silly for sure. And it's I don't know, it's a lot weirder because I think that they're doing kind of in the same way that these guys are dumb and kind of not less necessarily liked in the town. Communion does that. The guy is like chaos. He's played by Christopher Walken, and it's like truly maximum Walken, like more than when he's being a fucking meme. He's being like, like he's just dancing and being weird all the time. So when he starts being like, no, I was raped by aliens, people are like, what? They're like, I don't understand the bit.
Yeah, it's just the scene from Pulp Fiction. He took a watch and put it up my
honestly
head.
Yeah, basically, but screaming. Should we talk specifically about the abduction part, since that's the part everyone remembers?
Yeah, I think we can sort of jump around. Also, let's just get this out of the way right now, because
if you had to pick one, what do you think the Home Alone of it all?
Is the Home Alone of it all?
Can someone please tell me when the Home Alone?
I really gotta know.
When is the Home Alone of it all?
What is the Home Alone of it all?
Now that's the Home Alone of it all.
Christmas is coming. Basically, the Home Alone of it all is the idea that in Home Alone, Kevin McAllister slaps down the blueprint for his horrible torture routine. And that's what everybody came to see. Everybody wants to see these burglars get maimed and
messed up,
get burgled.
I believe that every movie has a Home Alone of it all, whether it be like.
And I believe that that's untrue. Just to balance the equation out.
That's fair. This theory you don't hate as much as certain other theories, like my.
I like the exercise. I think it's fun to do. Yeah. But I do sometimes find it tricky to pin it down in every movie, because not every movie is like a trailer movie, you know.
That's true. But this movie, they basically show the whole abduction.
This movie
in
absolutely
the trailer.
has a Home Alone of it all. Yes.
And it is anytime, basically when they find him and he's like a cowering mass, up until the time jump is pretty much the Home Alone of it all, in my opinion.
Yeah, for sure. It is a bizarre movie that they sell it entirely on this sequence that only happens 1 hour and 25 minutes into the movie, which is insane.
Not very long. Yeah.
No, though you're right, he is freaky when they find him too. That's probably his best performance, because he kind of, I think some of his like fearfulness or like being crazy he can't quite nail, but yeah, when he's like naked and feral, it's pretty good.
And he's just kind of looking around like a dog. Yeah, I think I would agree. I would even say his performance near the beginning, where he's kind of acting super youthful, is kind of like hokey, and I wasn't really fully sold on it. He pulls out his crayon drawing of the store he wants to make. I drew this while eating my Fruit Loops this morning. It's a store, a bike store. See, there's bikes on the roof. But yeah, I think that arriving is definitely the Home Alone of it all for me as well, because the movie tonally that's when it like shifts completely to what you were expecting, right? And it only gets more and more difficult to watch the further and further along, until the moment where he fully snaps and you see the entire sequence of events of him waking up in a goo tube or whatever.
Yeah, it's
How
insane.
could he have known that hiding under a table, maple syrup would accidentally fall in his
Go into
lips?
his mouth. And he's like,
So I do.
but now we know that they were feeding him really raw maple syrup, maybe.
I do have a bit of a theory about this. I do have a bit of a theory about the whole this is Jason's Theory Corner. Welcome. I do have a theory. I think that the spaceship pods serve a greater purpose. I think that this ship goes around from planet to planet, abducting people from those planets and puts them in these pods. And when they're in the pods, I think when they're in the pods, they experience what life is like on their own planet. So when he bursts out, he's like bursting out of like an experience where he's experiencing it to be like on his own planet. But then when he bursts out, it's sort of a metaphor for escaping the system, you know? And then
the man.
And then when he goes and confronts the aliens, it's like he's in like a special like new universe, you know, like it's a time outside of time. Listen, I'm talking about the Matrix.
I was gonna say I got a theory. Wachowskis, you're on notice. You stole the friggin' Matrix pods from Fire in the Sky.
I wrote it out. I wrote it out a bit more thoughtfully, but I can't. I'm not gonna fucking fumble with my notes.
I did not pick up on it until you told me, and now I feel silly.
Okay, but
I was like, what the fuck bong thoughts from my dream journal is this about?
Look, Nolan in the chat says, feels like you're describing the Matrix there, Jason. And I kind of did. I thought the Wachowskis may have seen this and went like, that's a really good way to like have somebody break out. Obviously this is not the Matrix. He's just in a spaceship, but I thought it was a cool, it was a very like H.R. Geiger feeling too. I found
it's also weird that like maybe they're being digested or whatever too, because he does fall into that other pod and that person is like all fucked up. They're like spaceship in Alien 3. Like,
like
it's really gross actually. Because he like puts his hand through their body, right? Like
it's gross.
It's a super gross. Like again, hyper effective, super gross.
It reminded me a lot of that Scorn video game that came out not too long ago. Everything is like super biological feeling. It all seems very organic and everything has a purpose. And it's grown.
And I do think that's like what you talked about with Tracy Torme, and then he throws almost everything out except the like suffocation and makes that weirdly organic, which is so creepy.
You can really see that like why everybody has this negative reaction when you mention this movie, because in 93 these special effects are crazy, and even in 2023 it's all practical.
They're still good,
and the zero gravity stuff the zero gravity stuff I thought was especially effective. It did look like he had a harness on, you know, around his shoulders, but you know, that's
I mean, you didn't see the string, and that's what's important. The real question is, would you guys give a shit about your keys? I'd be like, fuck my keys.
I definitely feel the same way about my keys. I also like the thing that makes this freaky is that the ship is filthy. Like, it's dirty and full of junk and full of dead bodies.
Human junk.
And just like everything is dripping slime, and like just when you think there's no slime, they like fill his mouth with slime. Like it's like, that is so weird. Also, I don't know. This seems like a hey, did you see this one classic? But have you guys watched Jacob's Ladder recently? I feel like
that's a movie from
Jacob's
this
Ladder
era.
vibe.
I put that on my watch list again because I haven't seen it in years.
It's truly like not good, but the visuals like this are great. Are good. And like you're like, oh, I see that this influenced everything, you know.
One thing that the imagery evokes, you know, obviously horrible imagery from like World War II, with all of just like the human stuff being discarded because they don't need it. But it also reminded me of like a slaughterhouse or something, like a really gross slaughterhouse, or what you would conceptualize in a horror movie, what a slaughterhouse would look like. Which then made me start thinking like, okay, so the humans are basically like cattle to them, and are they experimenting on them? I don't know. What are they doing?
They felt like
harvesting their eye juices. They're using them for fuel. Who knows?
They felt like space barbarians or like space monsters. It honestly, it was a little bit like not racist, but like, because you can't be racist against a thing that like doesn't exist, I guess. But do you know what the sentiment was like? His memory and his description of these like beings that are definitely real are that they were like these barbaric monsters where like they could have been just scientists, you know?
Yeah, but truly, I will say that the way this movie does it, like that's not science. It's just like suffocating a guy and then being like, I guess I cut you a hole. I guess I'm just gonna pour some shit in your eyeball. Like, and it does get like borderline torture porny for that medical part, because it's just like unending screaming, and it goes on more than you would expect in the 90s too.
I think that was the reason why people
right when they shut him up with the latex, they then cut his mouth open so you can still hear him screaming. Horrifying.
Tim in the chat says like a college hazing.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well,
that's what that white stuff in his eye was.
Oh God.
I had that
they turned him into the Ookie Cookie.
The Limp Biscuit, if you will.
I do think that they did a great job of like, because these are just your basic kind of aliens. They're just kind of grays, but they make them very freaky. The way they're kind of flesh toned and a little creepier. And the funny thing is the puppets aren't that articulated or anything, but just the facial expression is good enough to be a little.
Yeah, they moved slightly, but they look human enough that it's off-putting, and alien enough that it's clear that they're aliens. They almost sort of remind me of like if a worm evolved into like a human being instead of an ape or something, you know?
We would see them perfected in those coffee drinking worms in Men in Black.
Exactly. Yeah.
I thought that the puppets for those aliens were
they're made by ILM, so it's
I was going to ask
quality at the end of the day.
They did feel a little like ET. These aliens, I'm sure,
they look a lot like Close Encounters of the Third Kind, like your month. They look like those guys.
That's interesting. That's ILM.
Yeah, I mean,
too,
but they
right?
show a lot more, right? So I mean, most movies kind of silhouette or hide or don't show anything, but you get a real good look at these things, and they hold on there, you know. And you're just kind of like, oh, they're little beady eyes. They look like little old women.
Now, Cam, you're a bit of a you're a film historian. Do you have any insight into the like cultural impact of this movie at the time, as far as like, did people recognize this to be a good movie? Were the special effects did blow people's minds at the time? Was it kind of like this, you know, like a new thing for its time, a new way to show sci-fi?
Listen, did they think it was a good movie? Oh my, no. Pretty widely panned, but I think you are correct that everyone was like, holy shit, that abduction. And like Roger Ebert has a good quote that he said, the scenes inside the craft are really very good, convincingly depict a reality I haven't seen in movies before. And for once I did believe I was seeing something truly alien, not just a decorator's daydreams.
Okay.
So there's like a lot of people who panned the movie are like, boy, oh boy, there's 15 great minutes in it though, you know, which is very interesting. It's 50% on Rotten Tomatoes, so that might include some new stuff. But I do know that the thing that's interesting is a lot of people do cite it as inspirational, like and not the least of which is interestingly like what you wouldn't expect. You know, coming out the same year as the X-Files, but they literally said that they ended up hiring Robert Patrick later because they're like Fire in the Sky.
Oh,
like
interesting.
he played that so well, they knew that he could be Doggett and like replace Mulder all right. So that's kind of interesting because it's like, people who were working in the same way liked it. Like I think people who are in that world, and I do think that people say that it contributed because it made its money back. It wasn't a sensation, but people went to see it. And so I do think that it was part of that boom. Caring.
I can't imagine somebody going to make an abduction movie or even just an alien movie nowadays and not using this as a point of reference, along with, you know, a whole bunch of other things, because it is so poignant. It is memorable, right? Like, I haven't seen the movie in 17 years or so, and I
and
still
you remember those parts.
Pretty much every single frame of that sequence on the spaceship.
So much so that I'm watching this movie going, why has it been an hour and nothing has happened?
Yeah,
I thought that movie
was happening throughout. I truly did not realize that the bulk of this is like about mob justice and just like the way small towns operate. And and that's also where I'm like, I guess like tip my cap a bit, because this is like weirdly a complex drama that just has like a fucked up 15-minute part and then is like bye. And I will say, a lot of people criticize that it kind of has no ending, but I watch a lot of movies that are like based on a real incident, like and in the horror genre too, and the ones that really care about being based on a real incident, they all have a bad ending, because they can't be like, and then they prove ghosts are real. Or like,
that's what I thought as well.
And then Leatherface lived happily ever after.
Because the movie,
exactly.
That's the kind of the inherent problem with a based on a true story, is you got to tell the story the way that the story goes, right? So I didn't expect there to really be an ending. You know, it just give me the like Cole's notes of what happened after. I'm gonna go, since it's been 30 years since this movie came out, I'm gonna go like do some research. I'm gonna make my own opinion based on like actual facts. But I do want to bring up the fact that based on a true story.
That's what you do with the vaccines too, right?
That's true. I want to do my own research, but it's part of
just asking questions.
I'm just asking questions. But part of the thing about the alien abduction film from this era, also I want to touch on the based on a true story element of it from this era, where people would go into these movies, see based on a true story, and they wouldn't cognitively recognize that the based on a true story is they've cherry-picked elements. They used to see it and be like, this happened, this shit happened.
And this one is really, really loose, but I also think that it's like, you get to understand that this is based on something from like even 20 years ago which is like, so that I think maybe people went in with a little more skepticism. And I mean, it's like we do when you go to a ghost thing. You're like, okay, sure, based on a true story. I mean, all the Conjurings, like those guys were so widely debunked before any of those movies came out that it's kind of insane that those movies exist at all.
Paranormal Activity, though, I think it has like that element to it too.
Sure, and I mean, it was right before Fargo, where they just used that as a goof. It's not based on anything. They just thought that they'd sell their movie easier if they said it was based on a true story.
Yeah.
And it tricked people for years.
Yeah, and they still keep tricking people. And then there's the weird movie that's like, this is a movie about the Japanese woman who thought that it was real and she went to find the money. And it's like, that's also not real. That's also a fake true story.
Based on a true story.
Yeah, so I don't know. But I don't think, like we say, I don't think that there's too much. I think anybody who like harmed themselves due to this information probably had issues of their own.
Well, Nolan in the chat makes a good point. They say that no Google in the 90s. So, what, you gonna read a bunch of books instead?
Yeah, just turn to the weekly world. And
Aliens are real. Bat Boy.
From the library.
I mean, something tells me probably that on the talk shows and whatever, if you cared at the time. But yeah, it's a different time, you know.
It is interesting to look at the interviews with Travis Walton, because there are so many over the years from the 90s all the way up until I think 2021 he did one. And there's you know, it's like 40 minutes long of somebody just asking him questions. And I scrutinized it slightly. I just wanted to like see if there were differences in the story. And as I said before, there are so many that it's like it just falls to pieces. Because then you've got people who are like, his story never changed. And I'm like, yes, it did. I watched 5 minutes of 2 videos and they're completely different.
Well, that's the other thing is like, 15 years ago or like whatever, there was no YouTube. So he could say whatever he wanted and it would happen once. People would and also like you could rip off this James Earl Jones TV movie from a month ago. And if nobody saw it, they're never going to see it again. So yeah, there's all that interesting stuff. But yeah, I don't know. I also like, I will say in positive to the ending, I found it very cool that they decided rather to like, there was obviously a point where they could have cut and just like shown this happened to this person, this happened, but the fact that they had that weird coda where like Travis Walton is kind of doing okay, but it has ruined Mike Rogers' life sort of, it was interesting. And I did think that was like a cool choice to make.
Are there
that one of the guy who lost his mind wasn't the guy who got abducted.
Are
It was
there-
the guy? Yeah.
interviews with Mike from the years after?
I have an
Yeah.
interesting tale, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, the one I know is that like Robert Patrick talks to him and talks to him quite a bit, and also Robert Patrick stalked them. Did you find that? Robert
I did not. But I found
looked
out
them up in the phone book before he auditioned, and just literally like sat outside their house.
He also found out that he was related to the character he plays in the movie through marriage. He's like, I called some Mormon family members and got their numbers, and it turns out that I was related to the character that I was playing. So he would like sit down with the actual Mike and just have conversations with him about it. But
yeah, and I know there was like recently, Jason, what you would like for your muckraking ways is recently one of the guys flipped out on Facebook and was like, it was all a lie, whatever. But then it came out that Travis was working on a remake and that this guy was cut out. And then they kind of mended fences, and the guy ended up being like, no, I was lying when I said it was a lie.
So, the lie was a lie.
That's like the last this happened. The thing that I also find very interesting is that the people who are super dedicated to debunking it are actually UFO people.
Yeah.
Because I think that they know that, you know, if they're ever going to make a case, they need to have legit stuff.
You
and
see
they
that.
seem to really hate this guy specifically.
Yeah, you see that with people, Bigfoot people, ghost people, alien people, flat earthers. They want to debunk the really far out theories, so they're more, in their opinion, down to earth theories can get play.
Down to flat Earth.
Yeah. Down to flat Earth.
You mean up to Earth? Yeah.
Yeah, down to the turtle that the flat Earth sits on and flies through space, or whatever those nightmares believe. That's it. That's good. I like that. I like that there's more to this, because it could have been that this movie happens, the guy gets his cash out, and we never hear from him again. But the fact that he's still like, no, I went onto an alien spaceship.
I mean, I would be interested to see a remake of this, because
me too. I was thinking about it while I was watching it.
The book is told from his perspective, right? So there's very little of the movie that we get, this whole murder mystery that happens for an hour before he pops back in. So it's, you know, the book itself is basically all on the spaceship, all up to him being abducted and then the aftermath, but nothing in between or while he's absent, you know, because he's not there for it. But as we said before, the movie producers were like, this is a boring story. We need to make it horrifying and more exciting in order to sell tickets. So I don't know. I would be interested if his like, you know, one rule to make a remake would be like it has to follow the word of the book. I would be interested to see it, but maybe they're right. Maybe it's just a boring mess, because I was looking into some of it. And it's like, it does kind of seem like a weird acid trip or something.
I will say that there is this 2015 documentary called Travis: The True Story of Travis Walton. It seems to be pretty much like him talking, and he was heavily involved with. So I think it's probably, and they catch up with seemingly a lot of the people involved. Yeah. So I don't know.
Right.
If you want more Travis Walton, but he might just permanently have that frog in his throat, Steve.
He's
so
such a weird looking.
No, I watched
dude.
another interview and he didn't have it, and I was
Okay.
just been sick or something.
It's because Joe Rogan got
chugging
him
milk.
Yeah, got him super high, and then gave him a glass of milk.
Let's rip this DMT before we get on the air.
Talk about UAPs.
Noel in the chat says they want James Cameron to remake this movie. So it all happened underwater.
Pandora.
Yeah, it happened. It's set on Pandora. It's about Jake T or whatever the character's name. Jake Sully gets abducted by aliens on Pandora, even though they are aliens. And
Still set in Snowflake though.
Yeah, and Tim says he likes his Earth thick, so that's good.
I didn't hear what you said. Your microphone really blasted out there because you went so close.
Oh, sorry. Tim said he likes his Earth thick.
Oh yeah, thicker
flatter.
the better, as I always say. I like that the town is called Snowflake because it's populated by a bunch of people who would probably call us snowflakes.
Yeah, there were a bunch of Republican right-wing weirdos.
Yeah, you get some real racist rhetoric within seconds of the police arriving. You're like, oh, good lord, these guys are shitty. These guys are shitty people. I don't want to repeat any of it.
They do play
You
it.
get the point.
They
Racist
do-
cops.
Yeah, they do play it like it is a podunk redneck town, but
Yeah, they're all very cartoonish. That's one of the problems I have with the
Yeah,
movie.
yeah.
Is that everybody is very cartoonish. I think other than Mike, everyone's kind of a cartoon character, and it only gets worse like the further away from the main group of people you get. You know, like if you're a tertiary character, you're like, oh no, you're Bugs Bunny at this point.
like when they're in the
but, like,
diner and there's that one guy like Butch Wilson, and he's staring at them like,
yeah, and he comes there, he's like, "You got something to say to me?" or whatever. You're like, "Oh God!" But even like Dallas is super cartoony in his bully behavior. You're like, this is what like a middle school bully acts like in a cartoon show. This is not how people act in real life.
no.
But then again, I'm not from a logging town run by Mormons, so maybe they do act like that. I don't know.
It was also the 1970s
Yeah.
The 70s
through the lens of the 1990s.
Mm-hmm.
Were we supposed to
Yeah.
make fun of these people? Like, it was the movie. That's the vibe I kind of got. Was the movie was showing, like, the movie was kind of tongue in cheek about this situation, not initially, but as you're watching the movie, I'm getting like, oh, the lieutenant guy, he's like never lost a case because he probably messes with like evidence all the time, you know.
Yeah.
he
No, that was also a weird one where, like, again, the sheriff was like, "You never lost a case." He's like, "Well, that's not true." And then
Yeah.
he's
You
like, "I
didn't do
guess
your
you lost
research,
your
kid,
first
yeah.
case," and he's like,
Yeah.
"No." I
I've
also
lost
think
plenty.
that's that's just a weird like shorthand because like, you know, he's the Rockford Files guy and stuff, so that he would just be like a good audience surrogate.
yeah,
Yeah.
he's a little bit
I
foghorn
mean, yeah, even he
leghorn in it though.
By the end of the movie, like
I think
no
that's
one really
just James Garner.
Okay,
It's
yeah.
like, all right, I've got a mystery to solve. But he's the only one really who doesn't believe them, right? When Travis returns, everybody in the town is like, "Oh yeah, aliens! It definitely was aliens. I believe you. I have no reason to dispute your story." And then the one guy who is, you know, still trying to press for answers is the out of towner. You know, like he's only there to come solve this specific mystery, and he still doesn't believe them, rightfully so. I think that, like, you know, we were talking about pacing a little bit earlier, and I do think that the beginning of the movie, when observing it as a murder mystery, the pacing is quite good because you get some really nice tension right out of the gate. You know, exciting truck approaching a diner, and you know, you don't know what's going on, but obviously something bad has happened, and you don't know what it is. And from there on out, I do like the composition of like an unreliable narrator, which, you know, we get through the initial investigation. And I almost kind of wish the whole movie was told through that, you know, like they could have taken some real
They
creative,
could have
like,
turned it
liberties.
up a little bit.
Yeah, like I didn't really need the town dramatics, you know, like a town of Mormons railroading them into taking a polygraph being the main plot point.
The
of
whole
movie. It was
second
like, oh,
act,
good
like
Lord.
that's
Yeah.
the pin. I do like that whole first act is that thing where you see later in the movie and then you watch the movie up to that point. I don't know if there's a trope name for that. At any rate, I like when that happens and you know it's going to happen, because then it like tricks you into like waiting for the movie to catch up with itself, which I think is a really good little.
Well, it's kind of like, you know, the
audience
Clue or
invested.
something, right?
Yeah.
Where it's like, and then this is what happened. Then you get it would be kind of nice if the movie was told through, you know, separate investigations. Because in what world do they interrogate 4 people at the same time? You know, I was like, no, we're going to take these people individually into different rooms, talk to them one at a time.
Time crunch is why they do that.
Yeah, well, I mean, but then you could get some interesting storytelling where you're getting this version of this story told through, you know, 4 different perspectives, and then you change things here and there.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. I just kind
You're
of
Rashomon. But yeah, Jason, what you're talking about is beginning a narrative in media res. Is when it starts in the middle of something and then goes back to elaborate what's happening.
Interesting.
You know,
Thank you.
I guess you're wondering how I got here.
Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
It all
You're not gonna
started
believe I
back
got
in
into this one.
1972.
Fun fact, it started with Odysseus.
Like the book from like BC.
Yeah.
Wow. Wonder how. I bet you're wondering how I got into this fight with a mythological creature. That's fantastic. I've just as an aside, I like to find out what the names for tropes are. You know, I like tropes, but I find that when you go to the TV tropes website, it's not always clear because it's like a wiki, you know. So a lot of people have a lot of theories about what things are called. But thank you.
Can't agree on anything.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah. This town has a real problem with these boys.
Alien issue.
Well, no, they just immediately jump to assuming that these guys just murdered their best friend.
I mean, it's a very logical conclusion to come to if one person out of a group of people go missing and the reason that he goes missing is aliens abducted him. I would be suspicious.
I will say a lot of these people freak out so hard for 5 days. That's what surprises me. Like, your wife is ready to leave you when you're freaking out because your friend is missing.
Yeah.
In less than a week?
Oh, actually,
I felt like the wife was a very unreasonable character.
Yes, there's a reason why I brought up... Oh, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, why are you so rude to your husband? Stay by your man.
There's a reason why I brought up this trope thing, and you just jogged my memory. Is there a name for the trope where the wife is just irrationally horrible? Because this is a thing that happens in movies, and they lampoon it pretty good in Walk Hard, where the wife keeps being like,
it's called misogyny.
I know. Well, that's what I was going to say. Like, this clearly character is written by a woman or written by a man, but it's that thing of like, you have millions of dollars and you've proven that you can become a recording star, but you're never going to make it. That's the thing from Walk Hard, right? And this character...
think it's just easy, or I wouldn't say easy, I would say lazy writing, where it's like, okay, we need this character to have some sort of pushing factor, and that factor is going to be that his wife is going to leave him. So, you know, we can't have something that'll release the tension from him in terms of stress of the situation. We have to make it more stressful in order to get him to a breaking point.
It might have been a real thing where they're like, his wife left him, and they just make it a dumb reason.
Make her a one-dimensional character. Yeah. Noel thanks you, Stephen. They were gonna say patriarchy. Is that why that character exists? I thought, but you know, there are well-written woman characters in things.
Not in this movie.
But I thought it might have been a trope, a writer's trope, to just have a naysaying. Like,
I mean, for sure. There's probably, go on your TV tropes. It's probably like shrew wife.
Shrew wife.
Wife bitch.
Oh yes, and that's actually
King of Queens.
The wife bitch trope, where she's just a total.
This is a prime example of true wife.
And then he sees a busty alien and is like, I'm gonna
leave my shrew wife for busty alien.
That's a bit more spaced invaders, but maybe.
Right. Oh,
that's fantastic. I like that. I like that.
The one thing I will say about the actual character Travis Walton in real life, he didn't seem that crazy to me. Like, he seemed like he was just perpetuating his story, and he's almost tired of it now.
That's what the Robert Lieberman is like. That this guy is so smart, and he's like, it's so weird to run into somebody who's like Mensa smart. I think he said at the time he was like foreman of a factory and happy with that. And he's like, that's not really what you expect.
Well, Mike, like. He really just wants to keep the status quo. Mm-hmm. Even though his best friend is a bit of a dreamer, wants to open up a motorcycle shop.
Motorcycle.
He really just wants to, like, I didn't even really catch on to the fact that they didn't want to do this logging contract. I didn't really get that from the way they explain it.
I don't think they didn't lean into it in the
No, they didn't in the movie. No, I don't think so. And it was actually like, it sounds like they were just overwhelmed, to be honest. Like, and they'd already gotten notice that they weren't going to be able to like complete it.
They talk about it a little bit because they are like, we have to get this done we have to get a whole side of a mountain done by tomorrow or whatever. But I didn't really put together that's the reason. But that makes perfect sense. If they're going to lose all the money that is coming to them and also potentially get like sued for not fulfilling the contract, let's beat up our friend and leave him for dead and say aliens did it. You know,
I mean, Jason, you've seen me in Valheim. They need to hire me to
thought you were gonna be like, Jason, you've beaten me up for insurance money before.
Both of these things are true, or one of them is true and one of them isn't, but you'd be surprised which one is.
I
this is a movie where I was watching it, I was perpetually confused, and it wasn't until I saw the whole picture, and I knew that as I was watching it, I need to see the whole picture to really form how I feel about this story. The movie, the credits are rolling, and I'm going, yeah, it's a hoax. Obviously, they just came up with a lie and made this guy go hide in a cave for a few days. And then do a really good, like, freaked out in front of our
one thing that
I
didn't actually look into, which I meant to, was that when they find him, the detective or he's a lieutenant, I don't remember what he is, but Garner, he says the doctors examined you and you've been without food or water for 5 days. And I'm wondering if that's true. And also, how do they prove this as doctors? I didn't know they could prove such a thing.
That's a thing that I think that they kind of gloss over as well, where the doctors are a bit weird. It's not the guys, like, the weird part is the weirdos. Like, when they find him, there's like weird ufologists.
Well, the
like,
X-Files guys show up too.
Yeah, so there are, so basically what happened, it seems, is also that different X-Files guys examined him. Like, there was basically, like, they were doctors, medical doctors, but they were like part of a UFO society.
So they're a vape being like,
he insisted on seeing certain doctors. He also like only said what happened to him in a closed door session, and
there was that shrink who was like, I believe you. And I didn't read that, like, she was like, oh, I believe you, tell me all your things. It felt a little bit like she was like, I believe in UFOs and I want to hear all about it from you.
Yeah. So I think that there was a bit of that the people he talked to were believers for the most part.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, you can believe somebody believes what they believe, without actually.
I don't believe you.
Yeah. And that's funnily in Communion that also happens, where it's like he goes through this hypnosis, and then the same psychiatrist is like, well, I do run a group for alien survivors. It's like, okay, you just took out to the friggin' alien psychiatrist. I get it.
Here's my card. It's shaped like a UFO. Bing.
Yeah.
I'm going through my notes here. I think I mean, most of the stuff that I had written down from research is just the differences between reality and or the book and the movie and reality in the book.
Mm-hmm.
There's actually like 7 loggers in real life and not 5, and just that kind of stuff.
Yeah, they weren't a very tight group of friends at all. Like, it seems like they didn't really know each other except for.
But surprisingly, they did all go back to look for Travis and not just one of them.
Yeah. It is interesting, and there was like some of the back and forth is. I do think makes it more confusing and interesting because like they said they tried to call up the search, and then weirdly it does seem like the brother was antagonistic because the brother's like, no, why the hell are you calling off the search, like double the search.
Walton
and then they did another search.
Joe Rogan, like,
I want dogs and horses.
My brother was overbearing. That was kind of an immediate hole in the story for me though, where they see him get knocked over by the light and they just bolt. They just get out of there and then immediately turn back to go get him and see what's going on.
Yeah, though that does seem like part of it, which is interesting. And actually there's a fascinating doctor who refutes his claims at some point where his like, the only thing I want to refute is like, he's like, you didn't have these injuries. He's like, oh, I have this injury and this injury. But he's like, you didn't have injuries from, like, he's like, you said that this laser shot you 10 feet back and you landed on the ground. He's like, your back should be covered in bruises, like that, which is interesting. And that guy chose an interesting thing to be specifically skeptical about. He's like, oh, I don't know anything about the alien abduction, but I can tell you that you haven't flown 10 feet and landed on rocks.
All right.
Yeah, which is smart. But there's a lot of great little moments like that, and I don't know.
Yeah, it does help for the narrative to have only him go back, because then you can also have sort of them questioning their inward group that witnessed the event, and also them leaving him gives you the opportunity to have Travis tell the story of him being abducted without anybody actually seeing him being lifted off the ground, or how he vanished, or where he vanished to. It works in the film's favor, but logically it's quite odd. But I guess people don't really act logically when they're in stressful situations like alien abductions. I would probably have left him as well. I'm like, fuck you, I gotta go.
I mean, I the fear that Robert Patrick shows is like that's part of his great acting in this movie, and I did get it. Like I did get that he was freaked out, but like nobody of the 5, and I guess if the true story is that there were 7, nobody thought to jump out and grab him, or only one person gets like exposed to this situation. I'm not buying it.
To be fair, they
there.
are all screaming for him to get back in the car. Like, what are you doing?
Yeah,
they're like too smart to even leave the car. That's their thing. It's like, we're not getting anywhere near this.
Mm-hmm. It looks like Noel looked up the trope about shrew wife, and it's wet blanket wife, nagging wife, henpecked husband. Everything I find keeps bringing me back to Taming of the Shrew and women existing to expand the motivation of male characters as 2D stocks.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, that's Taming of the Shrew is famous for being terrible because you're like, what a great feminist. Oh, what? One more scene? No. Yeah.
That's great.
We should start. We should have a Bechdel test segment. I'll make a sting for it.
Bechdel test. No bit.
Yeah. Never.
I think that it would be hard to find a movie that passes the Bechdel test in 100 years of cinema. In the last 20 years of cinema.
Alison Bechdel hates the Bechdel test famously, so you know.
Right.
I know the movies exist.
Yeah, it's difficult to find.
You need to do a ladies month. Oh, ladies. Movies by women.
Yikes! You want to hear me talk about women for a month? I know women don't.
You love women.
I'll just replace I do love women. I hate the Ghostbusters movie, but I do love women.
You guys could get little AIs to make you look like ladies.
Yeah.
Oh.
Or wear wigs.
I'll replace myself with my wife, or.
I mean, I'd rather listen to that podcast probably. Madison. I don't know, some other lady.
I'll get Cass.
Yeah, we'll get Cass and Rebecca and
they can just do their own show. I think they did it on Blank Check once, didn't they? For the Birds of Prey movie, they replaced all themselves. Anyway,
don't mention better podcasts on this podcast.
What are you talking about? Better.
Never mind.
What are they all in the same room?
What is it? Not broadcast on Twitch?
Whatever.
I'm kidding. I love the Twitch audience.
I have a vision.
Free Palestine, right, guys? I know what you like.
I don't know. Yes, but I don't know if we can say that without getting 9/11. So the paranormal guy shows up. He's a weirdo. Very X-Files.
Yeah, the Afar guys, I kind of wish there was more of them a little bit because at least their cartoonishness was entertaining, you know.
I also realized they weren't so much X-Files, but they were the lone gunmen.
Yeah, or like, you know, that movie Paul where Simon Pegg and Nick Frost are on like a road trip going to all the alien encounters in Nevada. Alien. Yeah. They're like those guys. They're not real. They just know a lot about weird alien shit.
Yeah, that's a good movie. That would have been a good selection.
You don't like Lady Ghostbusters and you like Paul?
Listen, Lady Ghostbusters is a try-hard
Paul raped my childhood.
Paul ruined your childhood.
Yeah.
You were probably in your 30s when that movie came out. At least your 20s.
Yeah, you were probably in your 30s when Lady Ghostbusters came out.
It's true. I think that I was. That new Ghostbusters, though, that Ice Kingdom, oh, baby. What's the next note that I have?
like ice stuff.
I got no notes left. I'm all out.
I'm tapped.
You know,
yeah, I mean, the movie, there's not a lot to talk about because, you know, once they have their initial investigation and the exciting bit expends itself, and then you're waiting essentially for the next exciting bit to happen. And after that, nothing really happens. You're just kind of done, you know?
Yeah.
The movie goes on for a while, but it's over already. You're like, oh, there's still stuff happening on the screen.
Yeah. A little more divorce talk and yeah.
Yeah, and I mean they have their falling out, which I feel like Mike put a lot of that on himself. He was talking to essentially his friend who has stopped communicating because he went through a traumatic experience. He tells him to go fuck himself and then leaves, and then I guess never sees him again for several years.
Mm-hmm.
Do we know if he actually named his son after his friend? I guess his brother-in-law. Did he actually marry his sister? How much of this is true?
What am I, James Garner? I don't research all this stuff.
That's true.
I
I'm not
didn't
Robert
I didn't look
Lieberman,
up the
I'm not Travis
names of the
Walton.
children of, and I didn't even pay for a subscription to the oral
That's
history.
true. You watched it on Tubi, the free the free streaming service.
I wish it was on Tubi. I'm going through my notes, and it's literally like, I don't even have any. Usually I'll have like some asides of like, here's a thought that I had. And I just wrote out the movie. And I think that this is going to be one of our first, like, we gotta just take her home, because the problem with this movie ultimately is that there's not a lot of content that's worth talking about.
Yeah,
There's not a ton to discuss. I mean, we've talked about all of the good parts of this movie. I have read several reviews of this movie online, and a lot of people call it a one scene wonder because it's like the rest of the movie is just kind of stuff happening, and it's almost like if the alien abduction wasn't resolved by him returning, it would have been a more interesting movie because they would have had to have dealt with the repercussions of their friend disappearing, and maybe it would turn into some sort of courtroom drama.
And it does kind of smash cuts to them getting the phone call that night. He calls, he's like, come get me, and they think it's a crank caller, but it's just that he wanted to talk directly to Mike because Shrew wife doesn't believe in beliefs because she's one-dimensional.
And I mean, it's a very short movie too. It's like I think less than
it's an hour and 40.
It's less than 2 hours, right?
Yeah.
You almost kind of wish they did sort of do more with the reservation stuff. It's like, why introduce it and not actually have anything?
The reservation,
I guess that's
stuff,
just there to give you an idea of where he could be hiding,
and pepper in the alien abduction stuff through the whole movie. Show it with no context early, so you're like, what the fuck was that I just saw?
Well,
Obviously,
I think
we would
like
know
both of
in
you,
hindsight, but
I had the impression that the alien abduction is resolved much earlier on. I thought it was, within 25-30 minutes, he's back and we're dealing with the repercussions of that afterwards. And then you kind of see his mental deterioration, having him talking to the press. That's the real story, and then we would get these large chunks or extended things of him being on the spaceship.
Mm-hmm.
But no, that's not the case. We're waiting and waiting and waiting, and then it finally happens. And then you're so happy for a moment, and then it ends. And you just want to go back to space for a bit.
Oh, I've got one that I can do.
Is it another?
I don't believe it.
That's when they said the name of the movie in the movie.
Okay, I really wish that there was like, he looks at the camera and says, "It's like there's a fire in the sky."
He almost did.
Yeah, they almost did.
You can't play a drop when that doesn't happen.
Yes, I can, and I'll do it every time. 24 minutes and 5 seconds. He says, "Why don't you just tell us what you saw?" And he goes, "It looked like fire," and I was like, "That's not quite a name drop, but close enough."
Say it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then everybody in the theater said "in the sky."
Fire
at the same time.
and and everyone took a drink because this is the
And
Rocky Horror
where
Picture
was this
Show.
fire?
Last week, they say the Martians are attacking, and I was like, good enough. Got to use that sting. I think that I virtually went through my notes here. I think
The body of the podcast.
the body of the fuck.
The body of the episode.
So basically, at the end of the movie, we get a little bit of a time leap because it fucking destroys their friendship for some reason. That's happening.
I think
It
it's more
destroys his
more
life.
destroys his life, and he kind of goes off the grid, Mike.
Yeah, Mike goes and
Yeah.
is a recluse. Oh, something that I wanted to talk to you guys about a little bit is how Robert Patrick and all that makeup, the really shitty beard and long hair, he kind of reminds me of Daryl Dixon throughout this movie.
Yeah.
Daryl Dixon from Walking Dead just evolving
He seems
into
like
a sludge
even
person.
now even now he seems like he could be a Lost Dixon
Dixon
or something.
Yeah, I mean he also said that he like did go hard. It's hard to tell, but he said he gained a lot of weight and stuff because he
compared
was
to Terminator 2, I guess.
Yeah, he said he couldn't get any work really after Terminator that wasn't very Terminator-y.
Yeah, bad guys.
So he was like super wanted this role. That's part of why he stopped.
Yeah. He plays that same character.
Yeah.
He plays that same character in Wayne's World and Last Action
Hero, the 2-second cameo.
So I think that, I mean, probably some of that was him being like, I just need work.
Yeah,
please give me work.
money. Yeah,
because that's weird. Well, I guess Wayne's World is almost the same year as T2. Weird, but yeah. So it's interesting. It's and it's him acting. Like, yeah, he doesn't even after this get much chance to be anything else. So it is interesting to see him be a regular guy.
Yeah,
he's just kind of like a journeyman television actor now, right? And he doesn't pop up in too many movies anymore.
Yeah, he was great in
Peacemaker
though. Yeah,
plays a Nazi.
I always think about that. Actually, without revealing too much confidential stuff about work, I got in a debate with a filmmaker about hiring Kevin Spacey. And I said that I thought Robert Patrick is the exact same age as Kevin Spacey and can do a lot of what Kevin Spacey does.
And doesn't
just replace him with, yeah.
Well, I just honestly, it's funny that if you go through 64-year-old actors, it's a little tough to argue that Kevin Spacey is the only white guy of that age who can pull stuff like that off. Because there's a couple actors like Robert Patrick where you're like, Robert Patrick could have. Not only could play this role, I think you could argue that he could play almost all of Kevin Spacey's roles pretty well. Maybe not pull off 7 because you'd be like, it's that guy. It's that evil looking guy.
He could definitely do Kaiser Soze.
Yeah,
the guy with the rubber face and the box haircut.
Yeah.
Nolan,
the guy running without breathing.
Nolan in the chat says it's like the episode of Batman the Animated Series where the Grey Ghost can't get any work because people only see him as the actor who played the Grey Ghost. And it's actually Adam West who voiced that character, which is a good little call.
Wow.
But that's...
And Batman is obsessed with the Grey Ghost. So weird. Such a weird episode. Doesn't he sneak into his house? He sells all his Grey Ghost memorabilia, so it's all gone. And then Batman buys it all back and brings it and sneaks it into his apartment, so the Grey Ghost wakes up and all his shit is still there. It's like Batman had to piece by piece bring all this memorabilia back into his apartment without waking him up.
I'm gonna bring this all back into your house, Grey Ghost. You're my hero. That's like if I became Spider-Man. If I became Man Spider, and Spider-Man was an old washed-up TV character, and I Spider-Man'd all his memorabilia back into his house. That's exactly what it's like.
Yep. Okay. Okie dokie. It's the same thing except a different superhero.
Yeah, it's the exact same. I did kind of write out the anatomy of the abduction scene, but I think we covered everything. I thought that the space suits were a little alien because I've never seen this movie that I can remember besides what I was saying at the beginning.
No, you saw it. You just wiped it.
Just wiped your
mind.
Yeah. Besides the memory the hypnotist recovered.
Yeah. I thought that they were little alien fetuses. I thought there was something there, and then it wasn't. It turns out they're suits, but they were in their suits at that moment. But
one of them was. It was weird that one was asleep in a suit or something, or maybe it takes a really long time to take off.
I think it's
maybe he needs a buddy to help him.
I think it's the narrator, the narrator thing you were saying, where a bunch of stuff's just happening, and that's kind of the problem with this whole movie. It's just things keep happening, and it just doesn't.
There's a moment where it's very rarely do you say things out loud when you're by yourself, confirming what you're looking at. And it kind of bugs me in movies when they do it specifically because they're the audience is dumb. But it's he's looking at these suits and then he goes, "It's a suit." He says that loud. You're yeah, we know, man. You don't need to tell us. Yeah, you can see that it's a helmet.
Noel's also pitching that instead of us calling it the body of the episode, we call it the anatomy of the episode. So you definitely have to make a new sting now.
Oh God,
and make it even more raunchy.
Well, it should be like the anatomy of film or something. I don't know.
That's when they said the name of the movie in the movie.
You should just have a drop that's just farts or something.
Oh, I got that.
Jason has his fart noises. Before I made these stings, it was just Jason spamming fart sounds for.
I love it.
Well, I guess let's see. I guess before we go into our final thoughts, we'll play the MPAA rating game. What do you think?
Oh yeah. Do you know what it is?
I don't.
So Cam, we had an old co-host on this show, and he came up with the idea of let's just say what the MPAA number is, the certification number.
Sure.
And me and Steve were just like, okay, we'll just let him do it. It adds more content. It's a little thing. It's fun. That was my opinion anyway. We don't need to hear Steve's opinion on the subject. What I did is I evolved it. So now I know what this certification number is. Of course, you know what the MPAA certification number is. It's that number that there's that weird globe thing. It's got the little number that's when it's certified. It's rating the movie PG-13 or rated R or whatever. I have the number here, and I'm going to give you each 3 guesses to see if you can get it. And it's Price is Right rules. So
are you gonna say higher or lower to me when I guess, or are you just gonna?
What would you like? Do you think that's okay, or do you?
I think that's okay. We'll never get. I will never get near.
You'll never get it.
Yeah. No.
In fact, me and Steve have talked about coming up with a sting if somebody somehow gets it right on. We have a 5-minute fucking sting that we make.
Yeah, it's just a parade.
Yeah.
Dun, 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 dun. Yeah.
But yeah, it was Cam. Why don't you take a shot?
It's
5 digits. It's 5 digits.
I was like, I don't even know how many digits it should be. 31742.
Holy shit. It's pretty fucking close. Higher.
Okay.
31799.
Higher.
32413.
Lower.
31. I can't remember what my last guess was now.
That's part of it.
31826.
Higher.
31935.
Higher.
31935. 31986.
Man, that's this is it here, because this is, you want to go back and watch episodes and see where movies sit, because you guys somehow got within the realm of the number. We had some guesses in the chat: 31800, 31826, 31935, 31986. Oh, I think those are your. Tim thinks this is great TV, so thanks, Tim. I'm not taking that as sarcasm at all. The number is 32261.
32261.
But you
need to have like a noise from when you're wrong.
Oh, the fart works.
There you go. Fart. Okay.
All right.
I will say that everyone I remember number wise in the 80s and 90s is a 3. So that's usually an easy one.
And it started in like 1934, which you can kind of do a little bit of math that way. I think that there's something here. I'm going to evolve it. This has been we've done it 3 times, and this has been the best one by far.
Maybe knock off a few of the numbers. Give them a few of the numbers. Yeah.
Like the last 2.
No, you got it. The last ones you want to keep. You got to give them a couple of the first ones.
Okay, like it's in the 30,000 realm.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, that was fun. I had fun.
Fun game.
The crowd loves it. The fart makes it better. Thanks.
Yeah.
Here you go.
It's time for our final thoughts.
Everybody punching their numbers.
Everybody punching your numbers.
Oh, you didn't do the MPPP.
Oh, yeah. Shit.
The MPAA, everyone. The MPAA. Wow.
Wow. You know,
It's time for
Good God.
I was gonna skip ahead to like just the last like 1 second of it. I fucked it up. It's all good. This is the final thoughts portion of the show where we give our final thoughts, and if you want to give it a rating, a serious or hilarious, it's up to you. It is a common thread around here to give the guest the number one spot. So Cam, would you like to give us your final thoughts and possibly a rating of Fire in the Sky for Close Encounters Month?
I mean, like I say, I think it's surprisingly serious and like kind of an interesting drama in its own way. Good actors, like I say. It is very uneven. It is weird that the banger part is nothing like the rest of the movie. So I would say, like 5 anal probes out of 5 for the abduction. But the whole movie probably like 2.5 out of 5. Like it is truly a solid, fine movie that's like an interesting curio. But like I say, I would never be like, you got to watch this. But I would say you got to watch this 15 minutes alien abduction.
I agree. Oh my God.
Thanks, Cam.
Undertaker, Steve. Undertaker.
It's the same bell.
There's part
Just
of
slow
it.
down.
There's something I'm doing here. Steve, why don't you give us your final thoughts for Fire in the Sky, Smoke on the Water?
Sure, I'll just read my Letterboxd review. How about that?
That's all you need.
It's a movie that left most people clawing at their bed sheets as children, but Fire in the Sky unfortunately does not live up to my own hyped memories of terror. It does, however, still work as a compelling mystery if you're watching for the first time. Most of the main players turn in decent performances, though the town in which the story unfolds is overpopulated by chattering, cartoonish characters that had me rolling my eyes more often than not. I have not read the book, nor am I overly familiar with the true story on which it was inspired. Until now, after this episode, I'm a little bit more familiar. But this adaptation did have me curious to look into it, which I did. I can't help but feel like the movie left out quite a bit from that one scene. If you know the scene, you know the scene. It's the scene that we spent the majority of the movie or of this episode talking about. Some have called this a one-scene wonder, and while I don't agree with that statement, I can't help but feel like I entirely disagree with that as people's opinions either. I would recommend this to people who like small town mysteries, but if you're looking for a nail biter, it just doesn't hold up to that capacity any longer, for me at least. But like Cam said, it's fine. It's fine. I will give this movie a blast in the chest that throws you 10 feet but leaves no bruises. No lasting damage.
Thank you, Steve. That's a good one. I like the blast, blast in the chest that leaves no bruises. There's a lot to contemplate.
Yeah.
I built this movie up for 30 years, only to be pretty disappointed, except for the actual in-alien ship stuff. That was good, and kind of the main event. But even that was a bit of a letdown because of how scary I perceived it to be all that time. I'm now almost sure I saw the alien sequence as an 8 or 9-year-old, and it made me deathly scared of being abducted and things going in my eye. The acting is subpar besides Robert Patrick. The score was fine, except for those weird stings, which I think you touched on a little bit, Steve, at the very beginning. But like the score is like pretty good through the movie, but then it's like bring, bring.
Yeah,
That's
it's very
almost
weird.
playful.
It's odd.
It's fucking.
There's some good music in this movie, but it's like everything else, it's very uneven and unbalanced.
Agreed. The pacing for the first and second act were weird. First act being a recount of the night he got abducted, and the second being focused around the lie detector test. It has good elements, but fumbled a lot. I think the only thing consistently good was the cinematography, which, like, there's a lot of good movie making in this thing. Like, it looks cool sometimes.
Sure, yeah.
It's just like you said, it's just really unbalanced start to finish. There's some really good stuff that's just unbalanced by some weird choices. I also give it a 2.5 out of 5. I give this movie 2.5 years to mend a friendship destroyed by the sexual assault by alien monsters. I would like to just gloss completely over
eyeball
that
fucked.
and move
I don't want to gloss over it because Jason, weird stings. What are we talking about? WCW Power Hour?
WCW Saturday Night.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right. I love it. I love it.
What's Power Hour?
I don't know. I was looking up a vintage 80s, 90s.
It sounds like one of those like Sunday morning like mega church.
It was probably on some
sermons.
channel we didn't get in Canada.
Right.
One thing an anecdote I forgot that I wanted to say was the guy Robert Lieberman came up with most of the ideas for the general ideas for the abduction sequence because he dreamed it. And he said he never would have done it. He's like, it's that usual thing where you have a great idea in a dream and you like lose it before you write it down. And he's like, but I was married to the woman with the perfect fucking memory. He's like, you bet I shook her awake and told her the whole thing. And then the next day she told it back to me, which is awesome. Like, he's like, I realized I had a loophole for that dream thing.
Oh man,
That's
I need to get
incredible.
a perfect memory partner.
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. Well, I guess that's our episode for this week. Cam, once again, thank you for being on. You are a gentleman and a scholar, and of the three of us, the most reputable movie man in the history of the three of us.
I got a beam going on.
You got a beam. You're getting beamed up. Beam it up, Scotland, or whatever you said in Star Trek or Wars or whoever goes there and here and everywhere.
All of these things you're saying are correct.
Yes. And that just leaves us with one question we have to ask ourselves on a metaphysical level. And that is, Cam, you want to ask the question?
Hey, did you get abducted by this one?
And
It's the end of the episode, everybody. Oh man, I feel like I got probed.
hey, did you see this one? Now we get to be real funny for like 1 minute, because if we're not, we'll all fall apart.
I mean, I did just
We'll
say
all
I feel like
die.
I just got probed. Is that not funny enough for you?
No laughing matter, Steve.